Over 40? Still trying to figure your life out? Welcome to the club. So if you're like me and you're in your 40s or your 50s or your 60s and you're still struggling to get your shit together, then you've got company. I'm on a mission to see if I can figure this shit out because honestly, life has been feeling a little overwhelming and difficult at times, especially as I get older and I see my window of opportunity or opportunities start to dwindle. So I'll admit I've made some pretty questionable decisions in my earlier years, financially, career-wise, health-wise, you name it. Over time, those decisions have started to stack, and for whatever reason, I either didn't have the wisdom or the foresight to see how it would affect me later in life. So here I am. I've decided to take a journey over the next year to see if I can play a little catch up, see if I can fill in the gaps and learn some things that I was either too stubborn or too dense or too proud to learn along the way. So don't get me wrong, it hasn't been all bad, but if you're like me and there are still areas of your life where you feel like you're coming up short and you have deeply ingrained habits that are keeping you from making forward progress to get to a place you thought you'd be 20 or 30 years ago, and you'd ideally still like to go there, and you're not quite ready to throw in the towel and would not like your remaining time on this planet to be a constant repeat of your previous years, then hopefully by watching me things up or try to figure this thing out, I'll be able to provide some insight and maybe some inspiration at the very least, if that's possible. I'm going to lay out what a failure I currently feel like in many areas and allow people to watch me try to figure it out along the way. So it'll be an experiment. I will have to do a couple of things to test this experiment. I'll have to honestly lay out where I'm currently at in life, which can be a little embarrassing. I'll have to be completely transparent as far as where I'm at in each stage and honest about that too. But first, let me address where I am now. And so maybe you can relate. I'm gonna play the victim for a moment and just vent. I feel like a failure at times. Finding motivation is tough. All the things I know I should do, I don't necessarily do on a consistent basis. Sometimes I'll carve out a window of time to get important things done, and that time comes and I'll dilly-dally because I'm not focused or I'm too tired, or I'll get distracted with something else way less important. I'll turn on my computer to start working on a project or my business, and then I'll see something on YouTube completely unrelated, and down the rabbit hole I go. Sometimes I'll have enough of myself and I can muster the energy and the focus to do some things, but that only usually lasts for a few days, or if I'm lucky, a few weeks, and then I fall back off. It doesn't really matter what it is. It could be a gratitude routine, a workout routine, planning my day routine, health routine, consistently hanging out with my daughter, a routine of date nights. Take, for example, I'll start a routine on prepping food for the week. Let's say Sunday. So I'm all in, I'll prep, which would ideally allow me to eat very healthy and also not react to my cravings all week long. Next Sunday, gotta sleep in, gotta get to work, no time to prep this Sunday, and then that's it. 3 months later, I'll try it again. I'll start an audiobook, won't finish it. Something comes up, a few days in, I'm like, I don't want to listen to that audiobook or that course today or whatever it is. I deserve a day off. And so then I'm just gonna listen to ESPN today, and then the next day, and then the next day. Or take a real book. I'll be on a roll. Week and a half in, I don't feel like reading tonight. I'm too tired. And then the next thing you know, I'm 2 months in and there's one more book I haven't finished. I don't even know where I left off, and I barely remember what I read before. And I don't want to start all over, so needless to say, there's a lot of unfinished books and audiobooks and you name it. I don't consistently drink water. I don't consistently meditate. I don't consistently do gratitude. I don't consistently plan my day. Couldn't tell you how many people's birthdays I've missed because I don't check in with what's going on for the day or the week for that matter. I'm not happy with my body. Shit, I'm in my late 40s. I feel like every time I go out to work out, I'm getting injured. I'll get on a little bit of a roll, then I seem to get a new injury, which is incredibly discouraging. So then I have to take time to learn a new workout routine, and now I have to figure out how to work out without involving my shoulder or how to rehab something, but I don't feel like I have time to teach myself something new. It's like I'm having to learn all over again how to work out. I don't have the time to teach myself something new. I'm overextended on my finances. I've got more going out than I have coming in. I've always been bad with money. I was never taught when I was a kid. And so then as I got older, I was either too stubborn or too dense or too immature to learn because I thought I knew everything in my 20s, but now I have to learn. But again, I feel like I don't have the time because I have so many things demanding my attention. As a father, as a husband, I'm working a job, I'm trying to manage a household with a puppy, taking care of aging parents. All of these things are important to me. They're huge priorities, and I feel like they're all competing against one another, and they all overlap. The way it appears, because I'm not currently good at this, is that if I spend time on one priority, I'm taking time away from another. And so it creates guilt, which creates conflict. I need to spend time with my family. I need to manage my home. It takes away from time with my aging parents, friends that I haven't spent time with, and completely forget about me time. At this stage, there's no poker nights or softball leagues or catching up on a TV show. And sometimes I don't even realize it does actually create me time because it can all feel so very overwhelming. There are moments that I just shut down. What else has fallen by the wayside? This channel, which I've been putting off for a couple of years for fear of putting myself out there. All of it comes down to is, what do I want or need to prioritize? Obviously my wife and my child, but then there's also the truth in the idea of taking care of yourself before you can take care of others. But when you're already in the thick of things, you've got 1,000 different items on your plate. Bubba. I get sick and I get tired and I'm ready to put my nose to the grindstone. I'm feeling focused, I'm feeling confident, I'm like, let's do this. And then, inevitably, all of the urgent matters that you don't take into consideration, health issues for whether it be you or your family member, car issues, things break down in the house and need to be fixed, daughter has errands, and then just the everyday shit that you still have to do. Shop for groceries and pay bills, do the laundry, dishes, add the random shit that pops up. It's disruptive to whatever routine I try to have. Well, today I was supposed to work on this project or some other thing I deem as a high value priority, but no, I have to fix the toilet today. It's running and needs a part replaced. Well, why don't you call somebody? Maybe if I would have taken better care of my finances, I wouldn't have to do this myself, but that's what it is. So then there is this growing list of shit that you don't necessarily have to take care of immediately, but it still needs to be done. My wife and I have a saying, and it's funny to us, although it shouldn't be, but we just say, put it on the list. I mean, you look at all this shit and you're like, where do I start? The sheer volume of shit that needs to be addressed a lot of times feels overwhelming and impossible, and sometimes it's just easier to shut down, which obviously does nobody any good. So I'll just shut down and mindlessly scroll on my phone, which is useless. And I'll justify it because I'll tell myself I'm mentally exhausted, which I am, but it's incredibly draining. I often feel like I'm just spinning my wheels and not getting anywhere. It's demoralizing for the confidence, and it becomes a huge downward spiral. And as I say all of these things, I know the truth is there is no one to blame but me. It's been a stacking of decisions that I've made over the course of my life that has got me to this place. We've all heard success leaves clues, and there are tools and rules for success, not just monetarily, but in every aspect of life. And I can imagine in highly successful families, those parents have established habits and routines in the household that are conducive to becoming a high achiever. So there are resources and there is an osmosis situation where you subconsciously mirror and adopt certain principles and values and mindset and ideology at an early age. But I was never given certain tools or taught skills that are beneficial for achieving success in life. My parents didn't know these rules or principles to utilize in their own lives, let alone pass it down to me. So that does make it a little more difficult because you have to then proactively go out and try to learn these things on your own, and you'll only ever do that if you're fortunate enough to have enough experience and self-awareness to know that you are missing all of these tools. But at a certain point, I have to take responsibility for that. I can no longer blame my upbringing or the environment or the circumstances, and I just have to be honest with myself. To this date, in my late 40s, I'm still missing certain skills that would enable me to get out of this current situation and learn all of these things my parents weren't able to hand down to me. And look, I know there are exceptions to the rule. There are people that came from nothing to live uber happy, successful lives, but those are the exceptions. And the truth is, the majority of people aren't jumping social classes from where they were initially raised. So kids that grow up in lower class families tend to stay in lower class families, middle class tends to stay in the middle class, and the upper class tend to stay in the upper class. It's not a surprise when the Fortune 500 CEO's kid gets accepted into Harvard. It is a surprise when it happens to the kid raised in a trailer park. So what do I do now? It's not like I don't have resources available. There's books, there's podcasts, websites, seminars, school, all kinds of shit. But then we get to the next speed bump, which is where the do I begin? That's exhausting in and of itself. So I'll start on something and then something new and shiny will pop up and I'm like, oh no, I need that. And so I'll go to a different book. I'm like, oh, well, I need to learn that instead. And that's where I need to be learning. That's where, because that goes further in depth. So I'm just bouncing around all over the place. Or listen to a podcast and it'll be somebody who wrote a book and I realize I need to go read the book. And so I'll go read that book and completely forget about the book I was listening to or reading. Same with my roles. All in on parenthood and then realize, oh, well, I'm falling a little short in my marriage. So I run over here, put time and effort and energy in that work. Do I work on a project or do I work on self-development issues? Because all of that takes time. And every single time I end up starting over and over and over again. Like I'll start my self-development journey over again. So I will once again, for the umpteenth time, go in and list my values and my goals. Funny enough, what I write down is always the same. I apparently have a certain theme to the way I think. But then I tell myself, when I do it this time will be different. This time it'll sink in. This time I'll stick with it. Yeah, right. So here's what I do believe in my heart, that righting this ship might feel impossible at times, but it's not impossible. So yes, I'm in my late 40s. Again, I'm at a place where I, for whatever reason or excuse, valid or not valid, have not learned the tools necessary to achieve the life I ultimately envision for myself. But what is that? What does that look like? So here's my dream of how I see myself. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be financially successful. I want to have impact and influence and make a difference in other people's lives, people that I don't know. I want to travel a lot. I want to provide a beautiful life for my family and friends. I want to take care of my parents so they don't have to stress in their remaining years. I want to be financially independent so my wife and myself and our daughter and her children don't have to stress. I want to be able to leave something for them. I want to leave a legacy. I want to be healthy. I want to be disease-free. I want to live to be 100. I want to still be active and play with my grandchildren and have fun with my wife. So what does that all look like in the short term? Like in the next year? I'll go over that in depth in another video, but off the top of my head, I definitely need to make way more money than I'm spending. I need to get my side project off the ground and build it into a full-fledged career. I want to be intentional in my relationships. I want to take the time to not only plan, but also hold myself accountable in following through. So for example, date nights with my wife, time I want to spend with my teenage daughter in the few years I have left with her before she leaves home. I want to spend some quality time with my parents. If I don't prioritize time with them, that will be an enormous regret of mine. Time to meet up with my friends. We all agree every time we meet up with our friends that we need to do it more often. Well, I want to actually make that happen. My health, getting back to where I'm confident in my body and the way I look and feeling strong and energetic again. So how do I pull myself out? Where do I begin in the process? That's what I got to figure out, and that's what I'm going to be doing over the next year. And I'm going to see what I learn in the process and see how far I can get. I'm going to read a new self-development book each week and apply some useful bit of information each and every week so I can build or stack good habits and track them as I do it throughout the year so that it stays front and center. And I'm going to revisit it often. Gotta be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the next step is, and I think it will be probably clarifying my goals, which I feel would be a logical next step. But again, that's still all part of figuring this shit out. Maybe if you're watching, you can do it with me and we'll see where we end up. Hopefully, you'll join me on this journey. Please hit the like or subscribe button and I'll see you next week for our next part of the journey. Thanks for watching.